Just Baseball Show for Monday, May 27th. Jack Aram, as always, it's presented by BetMGM. And we're doing the weekend roundup with the finger. Peter and I kind of workshopped that last week. Did you kind of get the cliff notes on that at all or no?
No, but I'm assuming that this is like the home run signal as well. You're doing like a
Okay,
two for
so
one there.
nice tie-in there. No, he pitched the weekend wraparound, and I was like, no, that feels busy. Wraparound doesn't work. And he said, how about roundup? And then he did this hand signal with it too, and I was like, you know what? That's perfect. We're rounding up the weekend. I'm in.
And it's a home run signal. So there we go.
It's easy. Peter was way more in depth than I'm going to go. I'm going to tell you who won the series and kind of our knee jerk takeaways from each of them. But we're letting the master do his thing when he's
Yeah.
back next week on the weekend roundup. But Francisco Lindor looked silly, and we're going to talk about that. Before we get into this, can I get vulnerable for a second?
Yeah. Before that, I just want to say, before we were recording, we were talking about like the whole roundup now and
Yeah.
like the way that Peter structures that and stuff. I love it. And it sounds like the early feedback is like great and
Oh,
that
I
people
love it.
want that. So let us know in the comments if you like that structure because Peter like dedicates his whole Sunday to like writing up the storylines of each series and being able to tee us up like this. So yeah, like I want to make sure that Peter's Sundays are going to something good. I think they are,
I
but
think they are.
I'm not a listener of the podcast. So anyways, yeah, do that vulnerable thing now. What's up?
Yeah. So vulnerability. It was a long night on Friday. It's tough calling these road games from an Eastern time zone city when they're on Central time. Indy was in Des Moines Central. We had an 8:08 first pitch on Friday. Pretty long game. I get home. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to play MLB The Show for a little bit. I'm going to turn my brain off. And Adam Frazier takes me deep at 109. And I immediately went on Savant and I was like, okay, this guy hasn't hit a ball 109 miles an hour since he was 25 years old. I think in like 2017. I I've never been a controller slammer. I know some controller slammers. I've never been that guy. I didn't slam the controller. What I did was I gently put the controller down, turned off the PlayStation, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. That was the end of my night. Would that end your night too?
I have a similar story in terms of just like putting me to bed. But I was too livid to go to bed. I'll get to that in a second. Also dates us because the guy who did it to me in the virtually,
Yeah.
absolutely just crazy name to pull. But yeah, MLB the show's gotten to the point for me, unless they're paying us, to talk about them, which they're not.
Yeah.
Uh, dude, I'm like I'm fighting for my life there. Like when you said unplug and play MLB the show,
Yeah.
I like almost laughed to myself, which is also going to have another tie-in because my strategy in MLB the show, because it's so hard to hit, is very similar to Francisco Lindor's. And similarly, it doesn't really work because 3-2 guys throw it in the strike zone pretty often on the show too. And turns out in the real thing as well. We're going to get into that. But yeah, I try the all-in take, right? Like the blind take 3-2.
Mhm.
I strike out on a ball in the corner and I'm done. And it is really tough. It's a tough game to play. And I
So,
guess it's realistic, right? Hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in the world. But
yeah.
when I play a video game, I'm trying to pretend that I'm good at something.
I mean, I went into my nightcap with the sole intention of not getting a ball hit 109 miles an hour by Adam Frazier. And fucking look at me, man. That was like 5 minutes into the experience. I was like, you know what? It's just not my night. We'll try again tomorrow morning.
So do you remember when MLB 2K used to have the no-hitter challenge? I don't know if I've told
Yeah.
this story on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. It was like first guy to throw a no-hitter on what was it, like All-Star or above gets a
Yeah, it had to be
million
on
bucks.
All-Star mode. You had to like enter into the no-hitter mode so they
Yeah,
could
it was
track
like it
everything.
was a
Or perfect
live
game. It was
game.
perfect game. It's a
Perfect
perfect
game.
game. But one of the last years that they did it, instead of because it would be an all like a free for all, people would just be ripping it as much as they could, and someone would get it in like an hour and a half. So
Mhm.
it would create a short shelf life on the promotion. And I think this was like around 2010. And so I think what they started to do was make it longer. And like, okay, what's the best way that we can make it longer? Okay, not the first person who throws a perfect game, the best perfect game, and it would create like some sort of game score.
Yeah.
And I guess it was based on the overall of the pitcher you used, the overall of the team you played against, and then I think just the statistics of that perfect game. So I, wanting to win $1 million at like 13 years old or however old I was at
Understandably
the
so.
time,
Yeah.
I went to the Orioles because they were the worst team at the time.
Yeah.
And I picked some pitcher with no face. Turned out it was Jake Arrieta, and which is real. And he was like a 64 overall at the time.
Yeah.
And
Pre-trade.
I put them up against the White Sox, and I think the White Sox at that time were pretty good. So this also shows you how long ago this was.
Mhm.
And I had it in the ninth inning with one out. And people might say like, oh yeah, it probably like turns up the sliders in the ninth. Honestly, it doesn't. It's like even all the way through, and it just gets really tough. Ninth inning, one out, doing it with Arrieta. I'm like, I'm going to have one of the highest scores here. And Chris Getz on a 1-2 pitch pokes a slider 3 balls off up the middle. I
Yeah.
screamed on the top of my lungs, and my dad like came running into my room like, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't explain it.
Yeah.
Like
Did you
it
break
was only going to make
did you
him more
break a
pissed.
toe on the stand of your bed? No, fucking
Yeah,
Chris gets.
Chris fucking Getz just wiped away my chance to get us a nice little check there. So that one will stick with me forever. Obviously, I remember the pitcher and I remember the hitter there.
I love that it was that guy of all hitters. That Chris
Mhm.
Getz was the one that got to you. I was thinking like, hey, maybe Gordon Beckham at that point, but no, Chris Getz, which is
Chris
tough.
fucking Getz.
That's brutal. All right, speaking of the White Sox, speaking of Baltimore and the White Sox, wow, that was a crazy transition. Speaking of Baltimore and the White Sox, the O's and the White Sox kick us off, and it was a mop. Cespedes Family Barbecue, our friends over there, they call it a mop when it's a 4-game sweep, not a
Ooh,
sweep. So instead of a broom, it's a mop. I like that.
I do like that.
Baltimore takes it. They took it was what I think one of two series that started on Thursday. It was them, and then it was Toronto and Detroit. But Baltimore took all four. My overall takeaway from this series was Kyle Bradish is all the way
Mhm.
back. And it was
Yeah,
7 no hit, 11 punch outs, 4 walks on Sunday. And that was awesome. Awesome to see. Obviously, you can highlight some offensive, stars like, hey, Gunnar Henderson went oppo again. Adley Rutschman delivered in the clutch in a pinch hit moment. Okay, great. Michael Kopech, it was bombs away against him. He's a very scary deadline acquisition. And I know he's going to be a deadline acquisition. And
yeah.
people are going to be excited because Kopech is a big name and he throws 102, but it can turn into a derby against him quick, and Baltimore turned it into a derby. But Bradish, man, I mean, he looked as good as he has all year. And granted, it's been limited, but we were watching him throw in Norfolk.
Yeah, and of course, you're expecting him to have a good start against the White Sox, but when you go, 7 no hit, like you mentioned, that's just a different beast, and he just continues to be a dog for them. I had it circled as like the playoff rotation's shaping up, right? And again, I know it's the White Sox, but if Bradish is throwing like this, you know that you're going to get Corbin Burns going, and he's going to always give you a good chance, even if he's not pitching at the best of his abilities. And I still think he can get there pretty quickly, and we see flashes of it all the time. And then you got Grayson, who, when he's healthy and kind of rolling again, I think he's going to be that guy that we've seen most recently and up until he had hit the IL. The White Sox bullpen gave up 11 earned runs, I believe, or 10 earned runs in 11 and a third innings.
Hmm.
So that's one side of it. That's obviously tough. The other thing that's pretty crazy is the White Sox are now slashing 216, 279, 330
Oh,
on the season. That's not good at all. It's funny because we talked about the Orioles and like how that last series was kind of fluky with the Cardinals because of like games getting canceled and things like that. And I honestly think now we're seeing the Cardinals are playing good ball because I think the Orioles clearly was a little bit of a wonky series, but the Cardinals will get to continue to play well. And they bounce back now. I know it's the White Sox, but it's Major League Baseball. 4-game sweeps are not easy against anybody. Even just playing the sport of baseball, I don't even think it would be that easy against a AAA team. Like 4-game sweeps can be tough, and they took care of business pretty easily. Even when they were behind, they came back, and I think that they're right back on track.
yeah, 100%, man. I mean, Baltimore looks the part of maybe the best team in the American League. I think the Yankees are totally there, and we're going to get to the Yankees at the tail end of this episode, but I do think Baltimore looks the part. And they looked the part at points last year, but I had my doubts about a rookie Grayson Rodriguez and the first year of the Kyle Bradish breakout. Now Bradish is solidified. Grayson is solidified. Corbin Burns, like he's new to the fold now. And you've got Gunnar doing it again. All of a sudden, Baltimore's success from last year just feels more validated through the first 2 months of the season. Am I crazy for saying that?
No, I think it definitely. It's more. I agree, like sustainably believable. I don't know. There's just something about it now, and just even the way, again, I know it's a bad team, but the way that they get down in games now, and it just they play a lot more like a team that's been there, done that. I think this year, and you can tell they just never really feel like they're out of it. When you add that lineup, you never should.
Yeah, 100%. Toronto and Detroit is our other four-game set, and
Yeah.
Detroit took 3 of 4. Sunday was a weird one, man. And Sunday it was 11-9 going into the bottom of the eighth, and then the Tigers tied it at 11 in the eighth, and then you had that 3-run walk-off homer from Matt Vierling to win it 14-11. That was a wonky game. I'm not going to say throw it out because it was an awesome game, but man, like John Schneider's management of Alek Manoah, I think, embodied what this series was, where Manoah was in a hitter too long, and Kerry Carpenter took him deep in that last hitter, and it was a righty seeing a lefty. John Schneider is approaching Ali Marmol levels of managerial, I don't want to say ineptitude, but like managerial shortcomings, I think. I think the manager is hindering the Toronto Blue Jays, which is really unfortunate. I also think the leadoff guy is hindering the Toronto Blue Jays. And I know that you put out a tweet about the money that Toronto owes George Springer, but man, like this Blue Jays team is as close to lethargy as I've seen a heavy hitter in either league in quite some time.
I mean, the leadoff guy's David Schneider now.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, for the
good
most
call.
part, which I was about to say, are you really going to go there right now?
No, no, no. I'm going to the guy with a 580
No, I know.
OPS.
I knew what you were saying because it's the guy that should be their leadoff guy. David Schneider, like right now, should be, but shouldn't be on the team. Like he drives and runs. He elevates. He walks a ton. Yes, I do like a guy that walks a ton in the leadoff spot, but I want David Schneider being the best 6-hole hitter in Major League Baseball.
Yes,
If
man.
I'm a good team or five, like I want him driving in runs, and that's what he does. So the fact that he is their leadoff guy, I think says a lot. But he's been the guy that really has been able to set the tone. Like even when he has those bad games and strikes out, he sees so many pitches. He's so disciplined. But that's what Springer's supposed to be. He's a guy that has done that in the past, and I think we're just seeing him age before our eyes. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of injuries, and I think we kind of forget. We'd always talk about the issue for him was staying on the field, and now he's 34. Those injuries might be to him a little bit. You've kind of seen this just steady decline too. That I think kind of indicates, hey, this might be for real rather than a slow start or a slump. And they got to figure things out. But yeah, they owe him a lot of money. It was 72 million, including this year, and they've
Through
got him for 2 more
26.
years after this one. So it's going to be interesting there. What I had on this one, I agree with on the Schneider front, and I think, or the John Schneider front, the Davis Schneider front is he's been everything that they needed and more. But I also just think that this team, when it's bad and you are bad, you just lose all different types of games.
Yeah.
Sometimes these types of teams will always lose the 2-1 games, but they'll win those 14-11 slugfests.
Yeah.
They lost the 2-1 game and they lost the 14-11 slugfest. And that was a game that they had a 5-run lead. And that was a game where Vladdy had 4 hits. Vladdy's been one of the best hitters on the planet right now. He had 9 hits in the series. He reached base 11 times. Bo Bichette's even coming to life, and they still can't win ball games. And it's not like the Tigers, like I know they're a better team this year, but we were just talking about how they've been struggling and how they've been a frustrating team at points. And I mean, in this series alone, you saw a team that kind of embodied struggling a lot more. Like I would have had these teams kind of in a similar conversation of, hey, the Tigers are up and coming. The Blue Jays are really disappointing, but they're both like on the brink of being 500 and
Right.
still tough to watch.
They're meeting
But
each other at base camp, but one of them's on the way down and one of them's on the way up.
exactly. And I think the one on the way down looked far worse in the series. And I think that was really eye-opening to me on that front. I will say, give the Tigers credit. Their bats are coming alive.
Yeah,
Gary
man.
Carpenter's playing like a freaking all-star, man. And we've talked about it on the show for a long time since he was in AAA. Like, this dude rakes, and he's continuing to show it. His defense has been better.
Yes.
And then, speaking of guys we've been talking about on the show for a while, Cole Keith, man, finally.
Okay. I was going to say, how about the wash of relief that came over him physically? Like you could visually see the wash of relief as he was rounding first base, and he points and he's like holding up the number 1 to where the ball went out in right center. That homer needed to go so badly.
Mm-hmm.
And man, if anything's going to unlock Colt Keith and the Colt Keith that we know from high A, double A, triple A, it's going to be a couple of good games, and it's going to be a homer to right center.
How about 15 good games?
Yeah.
I mean, not all of them were good, but over his last 15, 396, 431, 521 slash line.
There you go.
And that was without the pinch hit double that he had as we're recording this on a Sunday. So he's coming to life, man. And this sport is freaking hard.
It's
We always
hard.
talk about the jump from AAA to the bigs. Go look at Jackson Chourio and his numbers. He's
Yeah.
going to be a really good player. There's a reason why the Brewers, a pretty small market team, gave him, 80 plus $1 million. But go look at his numbers. It's freaking tough.
Yeah.
So even the guys that are playing regularly, it's tough. But these Tigers bats, I think, are going to continue to get better. Torque homering was absolutely huge in this series, and a big one in that slugfest of a game. But I mean, the last thing I'll say about the Blue Jays is, if you're losing that 2-1 game and then you have the big lead and you can't shut the door with Jimmy Garcia and Jordan Romano,
And
who
Jimmy was
gave up a
good.
combined
Yep.
well, Garcia gave up 2 earned runs, and then Romano gave up 3.
Yep.
Combined 5 earned runs in an inning and 2/3. Those guys aren't the problem, but it's just, again, this is a team that to me is just dead in the water when even you are handing it off to your best relievers. And I know Romano has not been good this year overall, but when you have the game finally in control and you hand it off to your relievers that are supposed to shut it down and they still can't shut it down, it just feels like this team is just finding ways to lose.
That's the thing. Those two have to be Neosporin for that team. Like, you got to cut, right? It's bleeding hard. You have to at least be like a Vaseline Neosporin to kind of stop it and kind of remedy it for just a moment. And like, of course, it's going to go away. It's going to dissolve. It's going to dry up, whatever Neosporin does. But like, man, like Romano and Jimmy Garcia need to step up and lock those things down because wins are, as weird as it sounds, at a premium right now. And the
Yeah.
better bullpens in baseball, like I'm thinking about Oakland. Wins are at a freaking premium in Oakland. But guess what? When they have a lead in the 8th, they're going to win the game because
Yeah.
you've got Mason Miller and you've got other guys at the back end of that bullpen. Toronto, like, that's just not happening right now. And that's how you fall out of contention quick, is if you just don't have anybody plugging up the flood.
Well, and the funny thing is, again, just like when they are, like Romano day before threw a scoreless 8th,
Yeah.
but the offense only gave them 1 run, so they lost 2-1. So it's just like it seems like it's so hard to find a way to win these ball games, and that's why I think this Jays team is kind of in trouble. And I thought this series really embodied it.
Another clean sweep. How about the fucking Cincinnati Reds, man?
Woo!
They take a sweep at home against the Dodgers 9-6, 3-1, and then I think it was 4-1 on Sunday. But they win the slugfest on Friday. Saturday, a couple of solo homers get to Walker, and Hunter Green looked amazing. Wow, against that lineup. And then, man, like Brent Suter saw the front 3. He saw the big 3, and then they turned it over to Nick Martinez, who was a lights out bridge man for them. Cincinnati's got something cooking. This was an awesome week. Spencer Steer with a big homer. Will Benson got right with a homer on Saturday. Now the Dodgers have lost 5 in a row for the first time since 2019. Okay. This I thought was more a testament to the Cincinnati Reds and kind of where they're at. And I think their record to this point is misleading. I do think that they're going to be in this division until the very end.
Couple things. First, before I forget, I thought Walker threw well again.
I thought so too.
I mean, you're in Great American Ballpark, and first home run's like 360 feet.
Yeah.
And then, another one that was crushed. That was the 1 homer, and that's Will Benson. He's going to clip you here and there. But what I thought was interesting was, that's really where most of the damage comes from. And this was a team that just saw him last time out, so and was not happy with the way that he dominated their entire lineup. So to go back out there and it was 5 2/3, pretty much a quality start. I think we're still seeing Walker's getting right back to being Walker, which is always nice to see. And it's hard to win a ball game when you score 1 run. And I mean, the 1 run they scored was on a Jason Hayward double play. And and that's a testament to what Hunter Green did and what you were saying there. But I think of all the series we're going to talk about here, and maybe another one will come up that I'm not thinking of. And I know it's early in the season, but I don't know if there was one more pivotal than the Reds sweeping the Dodgers here, because obviously this is one of the tougher matchups you're going to have when you have to play them. And if it went the other way, I mean, things are looking real ugly, right? Like if it goes the other way, what are they, 19-33?
I think so. 14 games under. Yeah.
And again, I know it's still ugly. They're 8 under, but this is a momentum builder here. And then you pretty much look at this as one of the tougher series you're going to have. And then now you got some division games going, and you got the Cardinals, who I think you can continue to stick it to. They're playing some better ball, but again, this is a lot more of a beatable team. But now you have a collision course here of the Cardinals, who really needed it too. They've won four in a row, and the Reds that have won three in a row. But I think this was as big of a series win as possible for the Reds, because they're just trying to kind of get healthy offensively here, and just try to weather the storm, because it's been really frustrating to watch them hit over the last month plus, and to get to a really good Dodgers staff against some of their better arms, I thought was really impressive. And Diaz also being able to nail it down, like that's got to be a huge relief to have Alexis Diaz starting to close ball games out cleanly again.
Especially with Big Bro doing what he's doing in New York right now. Like
You know,
he's
it's just tough for
struggling
the
mightily.
Diaz family right now.
Yeah, it's really tough, but it was good. Like Alexis Diaz needed to see one go through, and he saw one go through in a tight ball game on Saturday with Hunter Green throwing really, really well. I took almost nothing away from this series on the Dodgers side. Like I know they didn't hit on Saturday. I know they're on a 5-game losing streak right now. They're the freaking Dodgers. I'm not going to worry about them.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I mean, you played a series on the road, and you got punched in the mouth. Like
Yeah.
it's just gonna
And
happen.
and now you go to New York where the sky's falling again in Queens, and like Gary, Keith, and Ron are saying, the sun's gonna come up again tomorrow. Like we're at that point in Mets baseball again. So like,
Yeah,
hey, the Dodgers can take care of business this week.
is that like the bit? Is that like the bit in that booth? Like I think they're one of the best. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah, for sure.
but the doomsday thing, like it's been rock bottom now twice, and we're not even a third of the way into the season.
Okay, so think about what you just said, and now think about Mets fans.
Yeah, well, that's why they love the booth so much,
Is
right?
it not
Uh,
perfectly a perfect embodiment of New York Mets fandom?
Yeah, like I want to see that booth when they're like consistently winning again. Like I'm trying to remember it in the season before, but it was always so like almost cynical. It's wild. I think it's a really funny aspect to it. But let's count how many times they say something adjacent to "this is the end of the world," like the sun's gonna rise, this is
Yeah.
rock bottom. I think we'll have four this year. But the last thing I wanted to say on this red side, Steer starting to heat up again. He had cooled off, and then how about Jacob Hurtubise, man?
Yeah.
Let's shine some light on Jacob Hurtubise to wrap up before we go to the next series. Like, I don't know if he's going to keep doing it. I don't know what it's going to look like, or even if he's going to get sent back down when they have some other guys healthy again. But the fact that this guy's one made his way to the big leagues, we talked about it. How it was just exciting that he got added to the 40,
Mhm.
and he's not going to slug. He's really unique. He's fast. He does not hit the ball hard, but it's a very unorthodox swing. But here he is, man. Like in this series, he has three hits. He has three consecutive games with a hit, and he's been holding his own. He's striking out, but you know what? It's just been cool to see him get up there and survive.
So Jacob Hurtubise, the backstory on him, he's from the Indy area. He's from Zionsville, Indiana. He went to the U.S. Military Academy. So he played at West Point for 4 years. He got a waiver after his senior season, which was the COVID shortened 2020 season, to play professional baseball. So he jumps in. Jacob Hurtubise, if I'm not mistaken, did not have a homer in Little League. I have this story right. Yeah.
Yes, he did not have an over the fence home run until AAA.
Yeah. None in Little League, none in high school, none in his 4 years at West Point. His first one was in Double A Chattanooga at the
Double A.
end of the 2022 season. I think it was the last game of the 2022 season. And then this guy busts out 7 homers in 2023. So, like, all of a sudden, you've got this power uptick, and he's a 40 homer threat because he had 7 in 2023. I'm joking. That's not his thing. He's one of the fastest guys in baseball, major or minor league. And man, like, he was a very fun story when he was added to the 40 man. And the fact that he's gotten up and played 11 games for the Reds and has a 720 OPS and has been net positive is even better. And it proves that, like, he's not just a good story, he's actually a good baseball player, too.
It was cool because the guys that really like at some point probably never truly were positive that they were going to get there.
Yeah, no.
You can tell when they soak it in up there. Jacob Hurtubise's face was just you could see the man. I can't believe I actually got here, and I can't imagine what that feeling is.
Yeah, dude, I looked so ridiculously cool. Seattle, Washington, and I'm not talking
Ugh.
about the city, I'm talking about the series. Mariners, Nats. You have anything from this one? This was a very tough one. Nats took 2 of 3. Keibert Ruiz hit a big homer. Joey Gallo had a single, which was unique. I have one question for you. on this series. And I was texting you a little bit about this guy this weekend. Have we decided who Mackenzie Gore is yet? So Mackenzie Gore put together an excellent start on Friday. Gore allowed a homer on one of the first, I think, three pitches he threw. J.P. Crawford led off the game with a homer. After that, final line, 7 innings, 4 hits. That one run was the Crawford homer, one walk, 8 Ks. Now, this guy has walked, 6 in outings. He's given up 5 in outings. But at the end of the day, through 10 starts, Mackenzie Gore has a 3.04 ERA. I can't decide who he is. He was supposed to be Clayton Kershaw at one point.
Yeah.
And then it was like, are we sure this guy is right? Like he looked broken in 2021 and, maybe even the beginning of 22, but then, he gets off to that great start out of camp in 22, and then he's part of that Soto deal, and he's been so ridiculously streaky in Washington. And he had a 4.5 in 70 innings in 22. He had a 4.4 in 27 starts last year. And now we're looking at a guy with a 3. I don't think he's the guy with a 3. I think this guy might be a 2 or a 3, which is kind of crazy considering where we were at even like middle of last year.
Yeah, I think it's clearly something that has shifted a bit. I mean, he's 25. He just turned 25 too. And I think
young.
Something clicked command wise. And remember, that used to be the thing that was celebrated off the charts for him was, oh, he has all these pitches and his command is ridiculous and all these strikeouts and no walks. And then all of a sudden the last couple of years, especially when it was really bad and we were almost doing the where's Waldo? We didn't even know where Mackenzie Gore was. He wasn't hurt, but he wasn't pitching. And there was a whole optics nightmare in the Padres organization at that time. Then he recovers his stock enough for them to trade him, but clearly they were fine to trade him. Like that guy was supposed to be a untradeable. You don't discuss him in any move, even if you're AJ Preller. And he had gotten so far from that. Then he turns into a half decent pitcher, as you mentioned. But then it's like, okay, well, what is he going to become? The fact that he has cut his walks per 9 by like a full walk and seems to be just getting better and more comfortable with that as the year's going on. I think the big thing, the changeup is back, and that's been big for him. He just looks like he's understanding himself now as a pitcher a lot more and realizing that like what used to work maybe is not exactly how it's going to work this year, but still having more confidence in his stuff. Also, his stuff is up. Like his fastball is up a full tick. And I think that really is giving him more confidence in this zone too. I don't know if he was trusting his stuff before as much. And now it seems like he is. This guy, I do think, even if he doesn't attain that ceiling, we were saying he's going to make $150 million, $200 million in his career. And even if he's a career 3.80 ERA guy, no one's going to be able to say that he was a bust or anything like that. Like he was still impressive and had a phenomenal career. But I think from what's clicking now from a velocity standpoint and seeing that assortment of pitches back again, where you've got the distinct curveball slider difference, you've got the changeup as well. He's again not going to be Clayton Kershaw, but I do see him kind of clicking closer to that in between, which is a damn good arm. And that's exciting because I did kind of feel like at points last year, oh, maybe he is just kind of the number 4 starter that's just going to have a nice career and no one's going to say anything too bad about, but it's going to be like, oh, wait, when we look at old prospect lists, like my son's going to be like, wait, Mackenzie Gore was the top prospect? I'm like, oh, you don't know. When he was coming up, he was supposed to be something special. Yeah, I think he's going to be closer to that.
Yeah, I hope so, man. And I feel like he became one of the forgotten arms in baseball last year, especially with what Josiah Gray did last year. And he had a ton of luck on his side. I know that. But Josiah Gray was an all-star. And I think we were looking at Josiah Gray as like, well, he's the pillar of the Nats rotation moving forward. And we forgot about the guy that was 24 years old in year 2 of his career. Yep. And now you mentioned he's up a tick. What is he sitting like 96.5 at this point?
Yeah, he's like up a tick and a half.
Dude, like he's lighting up the radar gun. And if he's got that changeup back with 97, I've seen him run it up to 99 in the early innings. I think we're looking at a damn good pitcher. And, I have no idea who's going to rep the Nats at the All-Star game. There's going to be a lot of time. There's a lot of baseball between that. But Gore's looking like the guy if Josiah Gray was the guy last year.
I think it's Trevor Williams. So that's my note. Is Mackenzie Gore and Trevor Williams the most underrated pitching duo in baseball right now?
Oh, gosh.
I know it pisses you off. I'm not saying like underrated in terms of talent. Just pure production.
Yeah, but like
they're combining for a sub-3, dude, and they're throwing as many innings as anybody.
I know. Production-wise, yes, they are the most underrated duo in baseball.
I'm not saying it's going to last, but up to this point, I don't know if there's been a tandem that's been more like statistically impressive that is going to get zero run, like media wise, and they shouldn't. It's the Washington Nationals. Who cares?
Right.
But it is what's interesting now is if Trevor Williams can just keep this going up until July, the Nats are going to get a nice little package in return because he's on a favor. I think he's got another year of control and it's cheap. So that side of it's interesting. My question to you is it an indictment? Because again, both these guys have been thrown well.
Mm-hmm.
Is it an indictment on the Mariners offense that they scored 2 runs total against both of those starters? We talked about Gore and Williams. In both those games, they scored 2 runs total. Or is it a testament to the most underrated pitching duo in baseball right now?
A little bit of both. So my next question to
Oh,
you was going to be, where are you at panic meter wise on the Seattle Mariners? And I think that is kind of the answer to the question that you just posed too. I think both. I lean more indictment on Seattle.
mhm.
I don't know what they got going right now, and I don't know what the fix is. I think they're going to trade for a star at the deadline. I really do think that there can be fire to the Luis Roberts smoke, and I think that that can
Mhm.
really help. But until they get there, man, I mean, this offense is scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point, and I really don't think there's any remnants left at the bottom of that barrel.
So a couple things. If they did not win the Patrick Corbin versus Brian Wu start, I'm
You'd be at a 10,
slamming the alarm.
slamming.
Panic, panic, panic. They won that game. Right now, they need another star. And I liked the Mitch Garver edition, and I liked a couple of these, but I think what we're realizing is they need another star. You
Mhm.
can you can try to piece together power with role players. And I know Garver's been disappointing to this point, and you're hoping that he's going to get it going. But that's kind of the point. And I know even stars are going to struggle from time to time, but they're going to give you flashes that are just unmatched. And I think J Rod's a perfect example of that. One of the 2 runs they had in the first 2 games was a solo shot by J Rod. And then the fact that they scored 9 runs in that third game was largely because of J Rod, who drove in 4 and had 3 hits and scored 2. So, like, I think that's the reality of it. And they just don't have another guy. If you are a pitcher, Jack, and you're getting ready to face the Seattle Mariners, who the hell are you spending extra time game planning for besides Julio Rodriguez?
I don't have a good answer for you. Like
Cal Raleigh?
maybe Raleigh.
Hitting
That was gonna be.
213. I think he's awesome. Don't get me wrong.
I know, but he's always kind of like around 230 with that 30 homer
With the
potential. So
bombs.
he's gonna
Yeah.
tag you, I think, which is
Mhm.
why I spend a bit more time on Raleigh. But aside from Julio and Raleigh, there's nobody that I'm circling at this point.
And Raleigh's a guy that he's gonna crush your mistakes.
Yeah.
If you fall behind, he's gonna be able to clip you.
Just
But
don't
if
make a
you
mistake.
execute a pretty basic game plan that, based on his blue zones, you should be able to get him out. And that's why he hits for a low average and a lot of home runs. And he's a really good player because of it, because that's all you need your catchers to do, especially when they're solid defensively.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that stands out to me. You need another guy that you're going to game plan for, and that's going to necessitate a big move, a splash. And the fact that they're 2 games over, you got to go do it. The flip side is the Nationals are almost at the point of not sucking, and I thought this series was a good example of that.
I
They're going
think
to call
so.
up James Wood. They're starting to see some of these young pieces come in. The pitching is starting to solidify. You can see that they're getting close to being close. And that's always nice to see. You got Cruz, you got other guys that are not too far away as well.
Yeah.
But this series should just be another eye opener for the Mariners. And I mean, the fact that they're 2 games over with how bad this offense has been more should be more of a reason to push the chips forward and go make an aggressive move.
Yeah, I think we just got to get Gallo out of the lineup. I'm blanking on his name. Logan Roy, is that the dad in Succession? The
Yeah,
CEO? Do you watch it? Like
well, I've started it. I have not
I couldn't get through
pushed
season
through as
two.
much yeah, which is crazy. I know we're gonna get roasted for that.
I know, I know. I'm
But
sorry, guys. I tried really hard, but I just couldn't get through season two. I hated all of them. But
that's the
Logan
point, though,
Roy,
isn't it?
it is the point. But I also we talked about that. I hated Uncut Gems. I hated Challengers.
Uncut Gems was trash,
Okay.
objectively.
Fair. I'm with you. But the point of like Challengers, everybody loved Challengers. I didn't
Never
like
saw it.
anybody, so I didn't like the movie. Just a unique one. But Logan Roy's line is, "I love you, but you're not serious people." Like if Joey Gallo's on your roster, you're not serious people at this
Yeah.
point. And we'll get to the point where they are a serious team, and I think that comes when Wood comes up.
Yeah.
Moving to Milwaukee and Boston. My overwhelming takeaway here, by the way, Milwaukee took 2 of 3 at Fenway. They had a benches clearing altercation on Sunday. How do the Brewers and the Red Sox develop a beef that results in a benches clearing altercation? An NL Central and an AL East team. They never see each other. How are the Brewers and the Red Sox fighting? By the way, credit to William Contreras, who had himself a nice weekend, homered in a big moment. On Friday, if you haven't watched Cedar Rafaela's defensive highlights,
Sure.
this was a good weekend to do that. But that was my big thing. I was just like, how do these two not like each other? They don't know each other.
Well, I would have just blamed it on Abner Uribe again if he was up there, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's not.
Or blame it on
That guy,
Hoskins.
yeah, I mean, Uribe is a certified psychopath, so like I could see him just rubbing someone the wrong way. By the way, we got to talk Pete Crow Armstrong before the end of
Uh-huh.
this episode. Holy
Uh-huh.
shit! Remind me when we get to the Cubs, we'll tie
We
that in.
don't have Cubs Cardinals to talk about. They played one game, so we'll just spend it
Yeah,
on PCA.
we'll wrap on PCA. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in the history of my life. But the Brewers Red Sox thing, the other wild thing about the bench scoring thing is I totally forgot that the Red Sox are going to have this TV show thing going on.
Yeah, like a Hard
Which
Knocks adjacent. Yeah.
yeah, and did you see the boom mic like hanging over
No.
in the middle of the altercation? There was a gigantic microphone hanging over.
I love that.
Yeah, I also realized that we're gonna get so much weird Tristan Casas
Hmm.
because I think he's weird, but he's also performative, and you know he's gonna be extra performative for the cameras. So it's either gonna make me want to cringe to death, or I'm gonna eat every second of it up. But back to the series, the question I had on this one is this Brewers offense going to slow down? Because we look at it and like, okay, I like a lot of these players, but I could also see how the same star conversation we are having with the Mariners, all of a sudden, those guys aren't putting up the same numbers, the Bryce Terangs of the world, that some of the other pieces that have been really swinging, even a Jake Bowers now all of a sudden who's been swinging it. Willie Adames is probably that other borderline all-star, but I mean, Sal Frelick's been swinging it pretty well of late. I think you could have that similar conversation, but at the same time, I think the Brewers have more star power in that lineup, period. When you can look at Contreras being, at this point, he's a star offensively. I don't think you can argue against that. Yelich is a star when he's on the field. And then I think Adames is fringe there. And when he's going right, he is. So I think they have a little bit more of that star power in there. But at the same time, like I still look at the lineup, I'm like, can they continue to produce like this? But they go into Boston and face a team that they've been throwing the ball well. And I mean, aside from game 3, which I'm going to get into in a second, they put up 7 runs in game 1, 6 runs in game 2. Like they continue to just hit, and hit. And I mean, Cutter Crawford's a guy that's been getting everybody out. They put 6 on his head. Like, and that's what's crazy to me. You got Contreras with 2 hits. You got Yelich with 3 hits. You got Adames with 2 hits. Joey Ortiz has continued to come up with big hits, and he looks awesome. I mean, this was a game that they had an opener go 2/3 of an inning.
Yeah.
And they win. And they hold the Red Sox to 2 runs. I mean, they have Bryce Wilson as a piggyback?
Yeah.
It's just wild to me the way. And then the Brian Hudson, who I found out who he was like a week ago,
Right.
2 innings, no runs, drops the ERA to 0.64. This team, I'm buying into it more and more. And I thought that this series, just going into Boston, facing some of their best arms, and really the only guy that could keep them at bay was Tanner Houck. And really the only way that they could keep them off the scoreboard, and only really with 1 run, was legitimately their A+++ staff. Like I think if the Red Sox with their current roster had to win a game 7 right now, like it was do or die, you have to win the game, I think they go with the exact like lineup pitching wise that they went with in that game 3 of the series, which was a Tanner Houck start, followed by Chris Martin, followed by Justin Slayton, followed by Kenley Jansen. And they only lost 2-1. Like they hung in that game too, and that was the A++ team from the Red Sox. I'm buying it already with the Brewers. I don't want to overreact to one series, but this is one where I would have thought the offense would slow down a little bit more.
No, I mean, dude, let's play a game here. All right. I'm going to give you, teams by OPS from top to bottom, and I want you to, off the dome, name 3 big boppers in that lineup. Okay. Best team in baseball by team OPS is the New York Yankees. Who do they have?
Of course, you've got Soto, you've got Judge, and right now, I mean, Stanton.
Right. The Dodgers are number 2 at 759. Who do they have?
Mookie, you got Ohtani, you got Freeman.
Okay. The Phillies are 3. who you got? Pretty much everybody,
Yeah, you
but
pick your guys. Yeah.
pick your guys, but like Harper's the headliner and everybody else just kind of falls into place. The Astros are number 4 at a 751 OPS. Jordan, Kyle Tucker, both swinging the shit out of it right now. Altuve.
Sube.
And then you've got the Milwaukee Brewers. So we're talking about the superstars of superstars offensively that are on the top 4 teams in Major League Baseball in team OPS. And then the Brewers round out the top 5. And yes, it's because Yelich is balling. Yes, it's because William Contreras is balling. But you mentioned Terang. Joey Ortiz has an 880 OPS. Gary Sanchez has a 770
And
OPS.
he did that last year too,
I know.
Sanchez.
And Sanchez was improved defensively last year. Like he wasn't egregious defensively last year. They have a vibe, and I'm latched onto their vibe. I'm a Brewers fan this year.
I'm loving it. And they did it to Pavetta too, by the way. So you
Yep.
mean you beat Pavetta? They did double piggybacks. They had Colin Ray on a piggyback of like Koenig or
Yep.
whatever the heck.
Also,
It's
Bryce Wilson still rocking a sub 3.
I think so.
Dude.
They all are.
So as weird as it sounds, this is very deep cut minor league of me. I think Bryce Wilson's a good pitcher. Like, is he
So
an
do the
elite
Brewers.
major league starter? No, but like he is an innings eater, and I think he still has a sub 3. We're gonna get to Francisco Lindor here in a moment, but before that, quick break. All right, we knocked out the big series here. Let's get to Giants Mets and Matt Chapman's walk-off defensive gem and
Yeah.
the heroics from that offense late in game, first 2 of this series. Giants take 2 of 3. Francisco Lindor did something on Saturday. It was Saturday afternoon. Walk me through what he did.
So I mean, I guess he wasn't seeing the ball well. And so in that at bat, he had a couple ugly swings. Or yeah, I would say I had one ugly swing for sure, and just didn't seem to be on it. But none of the pitches were really in the zone. It was kind of a chase swing, even when it was a strike. And I think it was another chase swing, and then works it full, and then a 3-2 count. You're thinking, oh, you got a runner on second base. I think it was 1 out, and instead of locking in and just trying to battle there, 3-2 count. Obviously, you're not seeing the ball well, but what are you going to do? Actually, what you're going to do is put the bat on your shoulders and not make it any more obvious that you're not going to swing. Takes a breaking ball that it's kind of, it was bottom third at the zone, but kind of right down the middle for strike 3, and he walks to the dugout. And I mean, he couldn't have made it any more intentional. It looked like 3-0 when a hitter just has no interest in even getting into a stance and just watches that pitch go by. And then they do the next 3-1 and get back into it. He just totally was automatic taking, and then said in the post-game presser, yeah, I wasn't seeing the ball well. I don't even know if he said I wasn't seeing the ball well, but he said I was going to take all the way. He hadn't thrown a strike.
Yeah,
he hadn't thrown a ball in the strike zone
yeah.
in that whole at bat. So he wanted to take it. And so he just took all the way, just a predetermined take. And guys will do that from time to time especially when you're not seeing the ball well. And if you're facing Yohan Duran at 3-2 and you think you have no chance, like sometimes guys will do that, but they're not going to give it away. That's the weirdest part. Like if you give half of a shit, you're going to still get into your stance, load, and try to sell that thing. He didn't even try to sell it. He didn't care. And I just, that's the level of complacency and just kind of getting from Mets baseball. And I know he's been swinging it well overall, which almost makes it more frustrating. It's like, dude, you had 3 straight multi-hit games. You've hit safely in 4 in a row. Why are you just sitting there with the bat on your shoulder and not even giving yourself a chance? Like not seeing the ball well to me is a joke of an explanation. That was baffling to me.
Yeah, it was baffling to me too. And when he was explaining it, like, and watched the whole AB, one of our guys in the Just Baseball Big Group staff text sent the whole AB. It was bad miss, swing and a miss on, a breaking ball low and inside, bad miss, swing and a miss, bad miss. So I get the reasoning, but again, sell it a little bit more. And that is something that can make the fan base temporarily turn against you for a couple days here. It's like, oh, why'd you do that? You don't give a shit. You're not trying to battle for us. Why are you doing that? It's just not something that I really want my star player getting into if I was running a baseball team. It's like, why do this when you could, like you're saying, give half of a shit and all of this goes away? Like this is never a dialogue, but it always has to be a dialogue in New York. And that's what really stinks about this. Now, tip of the cap to Randy Rodriguez. He's disgusting. And I talk often about middle tier relievers spawning and becoming upper tier relievers. San Fran has two of them right now. Doval's tier one, but they got two guys firmly in tier two, and that's Ryan Walker and Randy Rodriguez. And if you haven't
Yeah.
watched this 24-year-old Randy Rodriguez, he's 97 and 99 and a steaming slider from hell. And like, yeah, that's a really tough AB, but I'm with you, man. Just sell it a little bit more.
Well, and if you're hitting 210, like that that's an instance where I think you got to care a little bit more too. Because if you're a Mets fan and just in general, like I'd be living. I'm like, you're hitting 210 and you're that disinterested in your at bats right now in big spots. Like I understand that this team is it's slipping away, and I'm a moron for even believing in this little catfish that they gave us in the first 2 weeks of the season, where I'm like, oh, well, they're gonna get Senga back. Probably not gonna pitch this year,
Yeah.
and oh, the offense looks all right. No, they stink and they're disinterested because they see it as a bridge year too. And that's what happens when you say it's a freaking bridge year. I get that Steve Cohen is not happy in the fact that they are going into a year already kind of defeated without even an outside chance of winning a championship. But when you communicate from the top that it's a bridge year,
Yourselves, yeah.
these are the results that you get. You get 3-2 auto takes where the guys don't even try to sell it because the noise from the top trickles down to the bottom. That is, this year doesn't matter. And half of you guys are going to be gone anyways. And I think that is part of what is being exuded on the field and what we saw from Lindor. I get really frustrated when the face of the franchise types don't act like it, especially when they're getting paid to be that too. I mean, the 3-2 take like that and not even trying to sell it shows me that he doesn't care about optics, doesn't care how it looks. And frankly, I don't think he cares that much about this season. And if you want to tell me I'm wrong, like fine. But, Exhibit A is right there. I haven't seen a counter argument so far from him this year.
No, I mean, this is a guy that is one of three players to have back-to-back 6-win seasons, not
He's
accounting for
phenomenal.
Ohtani. He's excellent. It's Mookie, Freddie, and Francisco Lindor. And the fact that you're seeing this, and there is a discussion about optically the level of buy-in for the New York Mets in 2024, tells you that there's probably not max buy-in. I will say, since Jung-Hoo Lee got hurt, I've seen max buy-in from San Francisco. They're scrappy right now, man. And you got that grand slam from Pat Bailey, and again that defensive gem from Chapman. My only takeaway on San Fran is like they're not going down without a fight. Like they're going to have to get KO'd.
No, and I mean this is a series you got to have. When you're oscillating back and forth between 500, you got to have this one. You got to step on the throat of a team that is not even really actively trying to win that hard, and you go out and you score 15 runs in the first two games. And you lose the last one 4-3, but a good ball game overall. Blown save happens, right? Like that. If that's the one game you lose in the series, a blown save, you're playing pretty good ball. You're going to blow saves here and there, and you were way in the driver's seat for a lot of the other two games, or at least especially game two. You got to give the Giants credit. I think it's similar to what we were saying with the Red Sox, where they're getting beat up and knocked around, and they're young with a combination of some vets that are just either bounce back guys or guys that just have high motors and they're playing hard. And I think Matt Chapman's kind of the bounce back guy that wants to prove that he's still a star. And then you get the young guys like Luis Matos, who's playing really well. Elliot Ramos playing really well. Brett Wisely getting in there, getting an opportunity and playing well. And then you got, I think Pat Bailey's been amazing too, to just see what he's doing on an offensive level has been wild. But then you got the vets that are contributing a little bit too.
Yeah,
I think Logan Webb coming in here, that's one of my biggest takeaways is Logan Webb really solidifying that he's looking like Logan Webb again and getting that ERA now down to 2.74, 7 innings of shutout ball, 8 Ks. I mean, if Logan Webb's throwing that way and if they can piece together the offense like they have, they can hang around. I'm just worried that this offense is not going to be able to sustain this type of output when you've got Matos, Estrada. I still have my reservations about Chapman. I have my reservations about Soler. Ramos, I don't know how long this lasts. Brett Wisely's their shortstop. Ryan McKenna played in right. It's been really fun to watch these young guys play hard and perform right now. I just don't know how long that lasts. But it was nice to see them get this series.
Yeah, and it probably won't last that much longer. But at the end of the day, man, like all we ask for is effort. And I think Giants fans should be very happy with where the effort is from their San Francisco Giants.
The more inspired team won the series.
Yes, 100%. All right, Kansas City and Tampa. I really don't have much on this series aside from Seth Lugo. Kansas City took it 2 games to 1. Lugo was awesome again. What was it? 7 innings, a one-run ball. He did it without the punch-outs for the first time in 3 starts, fewer than 10 Ks. 3 Ks in 7 innings, but 4 hits. This guy is 8-1 with a 1.74 ERA. He leads the American League in starts, in ERA, in wins, in innings pitched. And that really doesn't matter, like wins and all that shit. Okay, whatever. But at the end of the day, man, like he's 34 years old and he's doing all this. He's throwing like one of the better pitchers in the American League. Also, Mike Massey was mashing and then he hit the shelf again. Just as he gets going, he hits the shelf, which is really frustrating. Royals are real. And going into play on Sunday, them and Cleveland had both won 8 in a row. They did fall in the series finale. Cleveland won their 9th in a row. We'll get to Cleveland here in a moment, but the Royals are clicking, and I think it's because of that 34-year-old Seth Lugo.
I mean, Lugo, it's just outrageous what he's doing because on top of that, he's the length that you're getting here too.
Yeah,
A converted reliever that's now I know he's starter, but he was a reliever most of his big league career, and now
leading Major League Baseball in innings.
in the other side of 30 to be doing that and giving them that kind of length is crazy. The other thing that's absolutely nuts to me is we've been talking about Salvi Perez, Freddie Fermin.
Yeah.
They're the new Blue Jays catcher tandem right now. Where it's just like you got to have both of these guys in the lineup.
Yeah.
Fermin in his last one, two. Okay, this is crazy. This is how many games he's had multi-hit in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then he only has one hit. Then another multi-hit game. Then he only has one hit. No hits, one hit, another multi-hit game. That's your backup catcher with 5 consecutive multi-hit games and then a couple other in his last 4 before that.
7 of 10.
I mean, that's nuts. He's hitting 305. You're like, this is just a team that's clicking on all cylinders. But another one where I think similar to the Brewers, like, yeah, it's a little surprising out of the gate, but then you could look at it all in a bigger picture, and you're like, oh wait, this kind of checks out. Like, I can kind of understand why this is happening. I will say they definitely need a little bit more star power in that lineup, and I think they're going to go get it. We've talked about that in the past, but this pitching's for real, man. And to do this against the Rays, and I know the Rays are fractured to a degree too, but they put up runs on them too. Another team with 15 runs in the first 2 games, and then they struggled to get on the board in the third one, but that's okay. You scored 15 in the first 2, and you ran into Taj Bradley, who looks phenomenal right now, by the way. But even in the games they lose, like the pitching was good again. Michael Wacha gave him a quality start. Yep. The pitching has really been the story here. Did you ever think you were going to say that about the Royals within the decade?
No chance, dude. I mean, we've been looking at that farm for the last, 3-4 years. They've had nothing pitching-wise in that farm. Nothing.
And the rotation's been brutal at the top every year.
Again, Zach Greinke was 2-15 last year, and I think Lyles was 5-17 last year. Like they had 2 runts of the litter, and now they've got the guy that's pacing baseball in ERA and innings pitched, which is just insane. And you mentioned the quality start from Wacha. They did it in like a grit and grind way this offseason, where they grabbed the 34-year-old. They grabbed the 33-year-old Wacha. I think he's 33. Like they grabbed the 34, 35-year-old Will Smith in that bullpen. They did it in a way that's unconventional, but it's old school. It's almost too conventional. I think now in 2024, it's unconventional, but it was conventional until everybody started doing the we need the high whiff guys. We need that. Guess what? Like you got a curveball like that with Lugo. I mean, everybody's going to love it, regardless of what cut of life you are in baseball. Tampa, I've got pretty much nothing.
No, I don't have a ton. It's just they're beat up right now, and they're playing like a team that's beat up. It's just that simple. I thought they showed some good fight to take that third game though, because it would have been really tough to come out of that with a sweep on the other way. But the Royals being 34 and 19 now is just crazy, and there's so much fun to watch. This is what happens when you spend a little bit of money and give yourself a chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. But
in a division like that, where you can smell the blood in the water.
But I would say that this series is just another eye opener. Rays aren't playing great baseball, but you travel to Tampa.
Yeah,
teams usually struggle there, and you take care of business like that. The Royals become more believable every day.
And you take them on in those City Connects with the skateboarding Ray. If you get a win against skateboarding Ray, that's
tough too.
It's really tough. Like it's like going into Bryant Denny and beating Alabama. Okay, Pirates Braves. Pirates take two of three. Big news here. Ronald Acuna Jr. Right before we started recording, it was announced that he underwent an MRI that revealed a complete tear of his left ACL. He's done for the year. He's going to get surgery at a later date. It's just shitty. And the initial prognosis was soreness, and he was going to go on the IL. He was going to see the minimum amount of time. And we were like, oh, like this is, like it stinks, but, whatever. Non-contact is really scary. The
Mhm.
fact that non-contact resulted in this is just demoralizing. And we've lost the National League MVP for the rest of the year.
I mean, came out, thank goodness, as we were recording this to be able to talk about it properly, but I was not expecting that at all.
No, like it seemed very minor based on the initial reports that we saw.
I mean, yeah, the initial conversation was just, oh, it was another like scary moment, and fortunately, it looks like he's okay. And look, the non-contact thing is always really scary. And once we got the initial like, oh, okay, it seems like he's okay. I was like, all right, maybe it was just Acuna, just making his pain very known. And we've seen him kind of sometimes do that when he gets hit with a pitch or whatever. I guess it was wishful thinking. When you look back at it, just the non-contact, the way he twisted around, it was scary. And I think a lot of people just like automatically kind of reacted and said, ooh, that doesn't look good. But then again, I just grabbed right onto the positive news. It's like, oh, okay. Like maybe it was just scary for him. Like maybe it just reminded him some feelings. But the quote that came out, I think right after, before we even had the confirmation of the torn ACL, is I think something along the lines of him saying this is as painful as it has felt since I tore it before. So sometimes you just know. And man, the we were talking about how the Braves, the offense needs to come alive a little bit. They have some things they need to piece together. I mean, this is the blow of all blows. It's bad for base. I'm like rambling. I don't even know where to go. It's bad for baseball. It's just terrible when one of your most talented players the sport has really ever seen has another knee issue. I mean, I'm just terrified for what this means for him long term. We saw the residual effects of the last time around, and as much as I like to give him a hard time for the way that he can be a frustrating player at times, my heart absolutely breaks for him.
For sure.
I absolutely just thinking about like him getting pulled off the field in Miami, working back from that again, just the residual effects of not being able to perform at the highest level for a while after that,
Yep.
dealing with the soreness and the nagging pain, to have to go through that all over again. I I really feel for the guy. You just can't even. I can't even imagine, especially when you're so good at what you do and you get taken away from it. It's like I always start to just think of like the Tracy McGrady's of the world and those people, and I just really hope the Brandon Roys. Again, it's not as bad as that in terms of the health, but and baseball is obviously a lot different. But this is a guy who's predicated on so much explosion, and it just sucks.
Yeah, it really, really sucks. I've got, frankly, nothing to add on that front.
Yeah, that's fine.
In Minnesota, how about this one? Rangers Twins. Minnesota took that one 2-1. Alex Kirilloff is finally here. We've been waiting, and Alex Kirilloff had a multi-homer weekend.
Stay healthy, please.
Stay healthy.
We've seen these flashes, and then he gets hurt, and then he comes back and he's trying to play banged up, and then he slows down again. Like I think that people just see the numbers on a macro scale, and they forget how talented he is because he puts up crazy numbers and gets hurt, and then comes back and it just isn't quite the same. When he's healthy and he's right, this guy's an everyday, above average, big league bat. And I mean, if they have him in the fold now too, Twins are another team that I just continue to buy into more every single day.
Yeah. Texas, you have anything on them?
They took a game in this series. They started Jose Urena, Michael Lorenzen, and Hersan Garabito.
Dude, like this was a white flag series if I've ever seen it.
Survive. They just got to survive, man. And this is another team. A lot of their playoff chances and repeating chances are predicated on health of guys that were cut open, right? So like that's the tough part. Yes, you're going to get some offensive pieces back. That's not really the problem. I think I know they could be swinging it better, but you're going to get Langford back. You're going to get Josh Young. back and rolling. They've lost what? How many of their last how many? I know it's egregious. Up until they won that last one. I'm pretty sure it was something like 12 of their last 14.
I think it was
Something
something like that.
very close to that. You're 3 games out because Seattle is everything we just talked about. And Houston is everything that we just talked about. And I don't think you're looking behind Houston at Oakland or the Angels. So just tread water. I think being able to take that third game was big. As long as you don't get swept in the series where you have to start Urania, Lorenzen, and Garabito,
Yeah.
I think you're okay. Seager seems like he's coming alive. I'm not sounding the alarms whatsoever with the Rangers, but I think props to the Twins though. They just continue to look pretty solid, and they're doing this with Pablo Lopez. I mean, he's doing that first half kind of stink thing,
Yeah.
and maybe more than ever will settle in. But I mean, that's really the only reason why they didn't potentially sweep. I think is what they ran into. They're just not having Pablo really throw well at all in the early parts of this year, and then I think was that Garabito's MLB debut.
I think so.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of anonymity on that guy's side.
There you go.
Was it his debut?
Thought it was. I mean,
I mean, I've never heard of the guy. I'll be
that's not a
honest.
name I had ever plucked.
28 years old from San Cristobal, Dominican Republic. Yeah, that was his big league debut.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
So, good for Gerson Garabito. I think this series that they have, they're hosting Arizona for 3 this week. I think that's huge. Both teams are 3 games under at this point. Like, I think we're going to see, hey, World Series rematch. It's great. The fanfare. Jordan Montgomery gets to face his employer after the deadline. I think it's going to tell us a lot more about 2024 than just reminisce on 2023.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Jumping to Philly and Colorado. Ranger Suarez's start in Colorado went exactly how you think it would. He went in with a 1.36 ERA. He came out with a 1.7. I think it was four and change, 5 earned, and Cal Quantrill was awesome again at Coors.
6 innings, 4 earned on 3 hits, but 4
Yeah.
walks, 9 Ks. Cal Quantrill just continues to be insane. He went 6 innings, 2 runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. I mean, Cal's figured out the altitude, man. That's the physics major, right?
He needs a 10-year deal.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, they
Colorado
need to
needs
make
to
sure this man never leaves.
Dude, they need to keep him there. Kyle Freeland style. Freeland, Cal Quantrill, German Marquez. And then you got Chase Dolander and Sean Sullivan joining them in like a year. Get ready.
And
Rocktober's upon us.
Carson Palmquist?
Palmquist. Yeah.
It's
easy.
Yeah, I mean,
And they go grab
it's actually
Chase
happening.
Burns at 3.
You can kind of see it coming together. I mean, it's coming together. They took 2 out of 3, the hottest team in the best team in baseball right now.
Amador
at home.
hot.
But no, I mean, this team right now is not good, but you can also see, like you mentioned, the pitching coming together and things like that. All I have to take away from this is that Cal Quantrill can pitch out there.
Yeah.
And for that reason, as you said, they should not let him go. It's not only that he did that again at Coors, did it against the Phillies.
Right.
6 against the Phillies.
My thing about this series was Colorado took 2 of 3. They took 1 against Ranger Suarez, of all people, who, like, him and Shota have been the 2 best pitchers in baseball to this point. And then they took the one where Bryce Harper got yanked in the first, or got tossed.
Oh, he got tossed.
He got tossed in the first, not yanked. He got tossed. I saw this note on NBC Sports Phillies telecast. Bryce Harper has been ejected 21 times in his major league career. Do you see who's second?
Who's second? No, he's second active, right?
No, he's leading.
Who's second among active players?
He's got 21. There's a 2-way tie for second with 9.
That's crazy. So he's more than doubled.
He's more than double. It'll make a
I feel like
ton
you'd probably
of
be
sense.
surprised.
No, it'll make a ton of sense when I tell you.
Okay, who is it?
Tim Anderson
Okay, yeah, he gets tossed all the time.
and Manny Machado.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all.
Right? Not surprising.
It is surprising that he's double that. Also, I did end up going down the rabbit hole. I didn't remember that part of it, but what I do remember is that I wanted to see who's been ejected the most. Bryce Harper has a chance to like kind of get into some good company. Like he doesn't seem like he's slowing down at all in this department. Like he's going to get tossed plenty more. And I think he's going to still have that fire in him to continue to get tossed. Do you know Gary Sheffield got tossed like 32 times?
No, that's awesome.
Would have never expected that, right? Like he got tossed like 32 times or 33 times.
Wow.
30, it was tied for sixth most ever.
Wow.
Right now, he's tied. Bryce Harper's tied with Reggie Jackson, so he's going to pass him. So I mean, I think he can get into the top six all time,
Pretty
but
cool.
we'll see. I mean, he's got to keep it up.
Who's number one?
It was some guy I've never heard of, Johnny.
Evers?
Or no, I think I've actually heard Johnny Evers.
Was he part of Tinkers to Evers to Chance, that Cubs double play duo?
Let me see.
I don't
I'm
know.
not going to pretend
Tell
to
me
like.
about Johnny Evers. I'm gonna start us with Guardians Angels in Anaheim.
Johnny, yeah, okay, I thought I. So my dad tried to collect a baseball card of every Hall of Famer, and I knew I'd seen the name somewhere. He's a Hall of Famer for some reason, uh,
Is he a
but
Cub?
with a 690 career OPS.
He was a Cub, wasn't he?
He was a Cub. You nailed
Yeah, there you
that.
go. Tinker to Evers to Chance. That's what it
So
was.
he stopped playing at age 35, and then 5 years later at age 40 said, "No, fuck it, I'll play a game." And then 7 years later in 1929, he said, "Fuck it, I'll play one more game at 47."
That's sick. How did he do in that game at
Maybe he
40?
was a manager and just like inserted himself one time.
Why not? Oh,
Yeah.
so BR bullpen, baseball reference bullpen, like they do this date in baseball history. If you have any interest in like a good laugh in the morning, just go to this date in baseball history and read like what happened in 1904.
It's just eye opening, like what society was like then, and baseball like occurrences actually really clue you into that.
Wild. And the old person baseball names are awesome in there too.
Yeah.
Cleveland and the Angels. Guardians sweep, clean sweep. I want to highlight Jose Ramirez. J Ram, since Quan got hurt on May 4th, and shout out Cespedes Family Barbecue again for keying us into this number. Since he got hurt on May 4th, Jose Ramirez is hitting 338 with 10 homers and 9 strikeouts. And here's like kind of a cherry picked, Kirkjian esque stat. Per Cleveland Stats on Twitter, it does a great job. J Ram is the third player ever to achieve these milestones through the first 52 games of a season. 15 plus homers, 50 plus driven in, 7 plus stolen bases, 25 or fewer punchouts. So hitting homers, driving in runs, stealing bases, and not striking out. The other two guys to do that are Babe Ruth in 1930
Hmm.
and Ken Griffey Jr. in 1999. If that ain't
Speaking
elite
of,
company,
speaking
yep,
of elite company, Ken Griffey Jr. got to meet you this weekend.
out of nowhere, he got to meet me. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
how
it
was
was a
that?
real it was a real privilege for him. He looked at me and said, "I'm very." He said I don't get starstruck often, but when I saw the guy from the Call Up, a prospect podcast, I I lost it, and I was like, "Yeah, man, that happens all the time. I get it."
That's
Uh,
giving Jazz Chisholm right there, the way you told that story. Did I do that right?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, it was cool. Griffey drove the pace car at the Indy 500. It was announced on Wednesday. He played in that East-West game in Cooperstown on Saturday morning, flew to Indy on Saturday night, and his dad, Ken Griffey Sr., played for the Indianapolis Indians in 73 and 74. So he came through the ballpark. We kind of filmed him doing like a walk around tour of the ballpark, and there's a suite dedicated to Ken Griffey Sr. and saw the clubhouse and all that. And then he, popped by the radio booth and said, "Hey," to me and my partner, and hopped on the air with my partner Howard. And it was awesome. So yeah, he signed a baseball and got a photo. I was like, I don't get a photo with like anybody, but it's Ken
Oh,
Griffey
you need one
Jr.
there. I don't like asking anybody for pictures ever.
Yeah,
I just don't like bothering them. Griffey, I would. He's my favorite player of all time. I mean,
yeah. Griffey,
I'm
I was just
jealous
like,
as hell.
man, I need a photo with you. And he was like, yeah, for sure. Let's do it. So it was great. And then, disappear for like 20 minutes. And then the director of communications, shout out Shane Ryder, he just came into the booth and tossed me a ball, and it was a Griffey signed ball. And he was like,
Oh
I just
yeah,
had him sign 12 and I want you to have one. So that was a very meaningful gift from Shane. So that was really cool.
awesome.
J Ram, though,
Oh yeah, yeah, that guy.
disgusting.
I mean, when you're a complimentary player and your superstar goes down, you gotta pick up the slack, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what J Ram has done for Stephen Kwan, who, by the way, rehabbing looks like he's doing well.
Went
Uh,
yard in high
went
A.
yard. I mean, that's what he does now. He just hits
Yep.
bombs. That's all he does. Uh, yeah, man. I mean, Ramirez, he started so slow. J Ram's the kind of guy that it's not about like what kind of season he's going to have. It's just when he starts, it's just how good is it going to be, and how is he going to get to that good final number? And when he starts slow like this, it's always like, oh, okay.
He's
He's
gonna go.
about to have one of the crazy stretches that we get maybe every couple years from him because he's so consistent. But when you have those slow starts from him or like some slow stretches, he always answers that with outrageous stretches. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing right now. And he couldn't have timed it up better. And that's what good teams do. Like when guys go down inexplicably, somebody else is able to pick up the slack and they just keep rolling. And that's why the Guardians are the Guardians right now. Sweeping that is really impressive.
Yeah. I also texted you Carson Fulmer threw like a high leverage inning for the Angels after Roansy Contreras threw a high leverage inning for the Angels, and that made my heart happy. Seeing Roansy Contreras and Carson Fulmer in the big leagues at this point.
That's a team that's trying to win ball games, right? You also got Mickey Moniak in center, and
Dude,
there's this
this
year.
is the prospect graveyard, is it not?
Kevin Pillar in left too, though, is also crazy.
Man.
It's not the prospect graveyard thing as much, but I mean, you can even put Matt Moore into that. Matt Moore's like not been good this year, but he's been good for them. Matt Moore, in terms of prospect
Oh
pedigree,
yeah.
that's another guy that we could talk about. Like people are going to look back and be like, "Wait, Matt Moore was a top prospect."
Yeah,
It's like, yeah,
yeah.
well, he ended up making himself quite a bit of money. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't what everybody thought he would be at one point. I mean, this team is a joke.
Yeah,
Kyron Paris didn't even have good numbers in Double A, and he's in
I
the
know.
bigs.
And he's in the big leagues.
And then they've got the fact that Ron Washington's the manager. It's just hilarious. I mean, but the Guardians did what you're supposed to do: sweep them, and they
Did you
swept
see,
them.
did you see what happened to Miguel Sano? Did you see the setback?
No,
He burned his knee on a heating pad.
dude,
That's his setback.
dude.
I'm not kidding.
He burned his knee on a heating pad.
He left a heating pad on his knee for too long and it burned him.
How is it that bad to where he can't play?
I have
You're
no
you're a
idea.
fucking DH, dude.
I don't know. I saw that and I was like, this doesn't make sense, but it makes sense because it's the Angels.
They're the worst friend. They're approaching worst franchise in sports.
They're really, really bad. Houston and Oakland. Speaking of bad,
Yeah.
the series was in Oakland and Houston took 2 of 3. Ronel Blanco made his return from his suspension. He was nasty on Sunday. 7 innings, a 1-run ball. My other update here, Jose Abreu is back today in
Yeah.
Seattle. Abreu
No, it's
played,
smart. It's
yeah,
smart. You get him, let him build some momentum in Triple A and then get him there. 0 for 7 with 3 Ks in triple. Nice, get rolling, and he's going to jump right back in that lineup, right?
apparently the quality of that 0 for 7 with 3 Ks was pretty good though.
Yeah, I mean, he did swing it well in the complex league against 14-year-olds, but like
Ah,
I want Abreu to succeed. I just think this whole thing is weird. Why do we rush this so quickly? Is he going to come back to still like a mitigated role and keep working on things before games and in the cages? If Joey Loperfido somehow plays less because of this, I'm going to freak out. He's already barely playing enough. He's like barely playing at all. And when he
you can
does play,
option
he
him.
puts up good numbers for them. I think he's going to probably take the Greg Kessinger spot. Abreu does, and I guess he was still just platoon with Singleton. And now you let Singleton take the bulk of the platoon and just put Abreu against lefties
Yeah.
and pinch hit with him and have him be a great clubhouse guy and just eat the rest of the contract and deal with it, I guess.
That's crazy. Like in no world did I think that contract was going to be this big of a
No, not at all.
at the
No,
time.
I had no chance. His
No
quality
one
of
did.
contact was phenomenal in the last year, and he struck out like less than ever.
It's
It was bizarre. But again, the Astros kind of just doing what they need to do, right? And it's not like the A's aren't a walkover team at this point.
no, not
Especially as you said, if you it's like a 7-8 inning game too for you. If you're losing, it's over. So I think what was it Mauricio Dubon who was walking by Mason Miller and said, "Please give me a chance." I
yeah.
think before the game. I mean, it's facetious, but it's truth and jest.
Yes.
Teams know after the eighth, it's over. So you're pressing more in the eighth. You feel it more in the seventh, and the game starts to shrink on you a little bit. So I think the Astros are starting to play some pretty good ball, and getting Blanco back and him just picking up right where he left off, I think was absolutely huge. And I think they needed a quality start from Verlander in the worst way, and they got that with 8 Ks over 6 1-run innings.
Yep.
I mean, they're starting to come together a little bit. Hopefully, they can keep it rolling.
He's 10th. He's top 10 on the all-time strikeout list. He passed Maddox. So Justin
What was
Verlander
it?
can
Win
go
number
top 10.
260? Win number
I
260?
think so. I do think that guy's going to hang on for 300. I really do think
I
so.
hope he gets it. It's just gonna be really damn
It's
hard.
hard, man. It's really hard.
Today's
And
game, it's damn hard.
yeah, shit. I feel like he's the last guy to do it
He's the
though.
last guy who has remotely a chance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to will himself there. I think it might be a limp to the finish line, but I
Mm,
think he's going to will himself there. I do like the Reaper nickname for Mason Miller. I think it's really good.
yeah.
And it is like he is silently a kiss of death for you when he comes into the ball game. And percentage chance that he gets moved, I'm at 75%.
I'd say 75% is just about right.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
not
want
one
to
of
say
those where it's like,
100.
oh, wait and see for next year. Dude, he might get hurt. So
Yeah.
I think they know that, and they know that this is their most valuable asset that they're going to have in a while. So I think they move him almost. I would probably say closer to eight. I would say 80 actually.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. I'm just like, I don't know, that's 5.5 years of
It's
control in Oakland's
it's
Oakland.
also the A's.
Right. It's the A, so they might not do the smart thing. Miami and Arizona. We've got kind of 2.5 more series to go over. Miami and Arizona. I want to save a lot of the Arizona conversation for tomorrow's show because I want to do a dive into an article that's coming out today. Probably while you're listening to this right now, a Corbin Carroll kind of deep dive is out from Aram, and we're going to really dive into that on tomorrow's
Yeah.
show. So I want to save the Arizona stuff. Braxton Garrett with a Maddox was awesome. That was my highlight of the weekend.
First of his professional career. Yeah, just first complete game. The first time going more than 7 innings in his professional career.
Wow.
The Marlins are pitching.
Mm-hmm.
They are pitching. They're throwing the heck out of the ball right now, and I mean that's what they're supposed to do. And I love to give the Marlins a hard time, and they're not good by any means, but they're also not that bad. Like they're not the team. Remember we were talking about teams that could like lose 100 games, whatever. And it's like no chance the Marlins lose 100 games because their pitching's too good. And that was even knowing that Sandy was going to be out and some of these other guys were going to be out. But it just all those guys weren't available. Braxton then ends up not being available. You miss Luzardo for some time.
Finicky.
Edward Cabrera's hurt. I think now you're seeing what this staff can do when healthy. And then I think the big story continues to be Ryan Weathers, if there is a big story on the pitching side of this team. I mean, it is just wild to see how he's settled in. And I don't want to give all the credit to Mel Stoudemire Jr. because Ryan Weathers is a grinder and he's shown that he could do it in the past. But also, I bet you Ryan Weathers would give some credit to Mel Stoudemire Jr.
Sure.
This is just another example of a talented pitcher under the tutelage of Mel Stoudemire Jr. unlocking something different. Weathers has been phenomenal every single time he's out there. But I will also say this is a testament to how bad the offense is right now in Arizona. They are unwatchable through stretches. A lot of the guys that should be swinging it for them are not. Lourdes Gurriel, especially, I'm looking at you. Eugenio Suarez, like those are the guys that are supposed to just kind of keep the status quo. They're not. So the Corbin Carroll struggles are felt, I think times 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah. I can absolutely get behind that. I know Lourdes had, kind of a hot shot double to, push an advantage their way. And Miami did end up taking 2 of 3, but in the win, Gurriel had a nice day. But I'm with you. Like this entire offense is falling flat and the spotlight's on Corbin Carroll, understandably so. But you're right. Like that spotlight should be a little bit dimmer with the supporting cast kind of helping him out.
3 runs in 3 games. One other note I just wanted to make. Zach Gallen got the ball in game 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Gallen's done a great job pitching against the Marlins. I think he's got a little bit of an extra fire under him, and understandably so. They made a trade that I think at the time a lot of people were surprised by, and because of how damn good he was. I mean, when they moved him, he was pitching like one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I think people were just expecting maybe that wouldn't continue, and it has as he's continued to be a Cy Young candidate. But I wanted to go back to this quote, and this was before Jazz Chisholm had ever faced Zach Gallen. And that's why I made the joke about your story sounding like something from Jazz Chisholm because it's a little bit of a precursor to this. I wanted to foreshadow. He said this, I think it was on the R2C2 podcast, which
Yeah.
is CC Sabathia's, right?
Yep.
And again, this was before he ever faced Zach Gallen. And I quote, I'm not going to lie to you. The one thing I really want to do is take Zach Gallen deep. Facing me, it's going to be a motherfucker when I get there. I love the confidence. I'm gonna. I just if you say something, I think it ages in a funny way. I'm gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
Since then, Jazz Chisholm is 0 for 12 with 5 strikeouts against Zach Gallen. I guess we got different definitions of motherfucker.
That's, I mean, that's kind of poetic justice from Gallon, and I love that. And I guarantee you, Gallon knows that Jazz said that.
And I'm sure Gallen wanted to strike him out too. The
Yes.
difference is he does it.
One
He
of
doesn't
them,
just say
yeah,
it.
one of them's
Jazz,
gonna
Jazz
do it.
does
The
cool
other's gonna
shit.
say
Jazz
it.
is swinging the bat really well. He's actually been really good of late. I think he's
Yeah.
a really good player. But people are calling him overrated because of this stuff. Because then when you don't back it up, it just looks goofy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one thing to be like 1 for 8 or like 2 for 12.
Right, but 0 for
Dude's
12
0
with
for
five
12
hits.
with five punchies.
Yeah. That's
That's
no
all I
blame him.
had. That's all I had. But it's we're hitting dire. It's dire time for like we've reached that point where it's just scary on the Diamondbacks offense, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And again, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that tomorrow with their headliner. Best for last, pretty much. We don't really have an update on Cubs Cardinals. We are going to wrap with the PCA thing. Best series for last, Yankees beat the Padres 2-1. I have literally one takeaway from this series. The Yankees are an absolute buzzsaw. That's my takeaway. They got 4 straight scoreless starts from their rotation, and Clark Schmidt followed with 1 earned on Sunday to snap that stretch. Stroman was nails. Rodon was nails in the series opener. And dude, Soto hitting that ball to the stratosphere after he was booed, walking up for the first time at Petco, and it going Soto, Judge, Stanton, 3 homers in the third against Yu Darvish. That was nuts on Friday. This team is as exciting as any team in baseball. And like, it doesn't pain me. I'm not one of those Yankee haters, but I think it's fun when the Yankees have a little bit of dysfunction because it makes Peter crazy and it also makes the Yankee fan base crazy.
Mhm.
Crazy. There's really no dysfunction here, and they're getting the best pitcher on the planet back in due time. I mean, this team is built like a team that can win it all.
I love nothing more than when Stanton's performing as well.
Yeah.
And I know in the last game of the series, he went 0 for 4. He golden sombreroed. But I mean, the fact that he can do damage right now, too, I think is just only causing Soto and Judge to see more. And I think we're also seeing the residual effect of Soto and Judge back to back in a lineup,
Yeah.
where those are two guys that see the least pitches to hit of just about anybody in baseball. And now they're seeing a few more because of each other. And then now Stanton behind that. And Verdugo, it sounds funny to see him in that sandwiched in between those guys, but it kind of is a good taste breaker in the middle of these power guys that see a lot of pitches. I love the way that this lineup kind of balances out. And when they're healthy like this and they're pitching the way that they're pitching, this reminds me a lot of the way that they started in, what was it, 21? Was it 2021?
I think
Where they
so.
were out of this world. I hope that they can continue it. But I mean, they continue to look really good out of the gate so far. And the only other thing I wanted to note was that Musgrove, I mean, it was just good to see him go out there and put together a pretty good start against a good team. Jeremiah Estrada just continues to be
Disgusting.
outrageous.
How
An inning
he
and 2/3,
was,
5 strikeouts, 26 pitches, 20 strikes. Holy shit. He was disgusting in AAA, but it's been the same level of domination at the bigs.
dude, how he was a cast off by the Cubs, I have no idea.
Rare miss there in recent years when it comes to the pitching side of things, and identifying some of those guys. But I mean, the fact that the Baltimore's keeping pace is amazing. The
Yeah.
Yankees, I agree, they're just a buzzsaw, and the series just gave you a little bit of everything in terms of why they're so good because of the different ways that they can win ball games and just all the different aspects that they have to their team that is well above average.
Do you know what Aaron Judge has done in the month of May before I give you the rundown? 24 games in the month of May at this point.
It feels like he's hit like 10 homers.
He's hit 11 homers. What do you think he's hitting? Like batting average wise, what do you think he's hitting?
380.
383. Great guess.
Wow. Okay.
OPS, where do you think he's at?
I'm gonna go
24
like
games, like
four.
the month of May.
I'm gonna go like 1450.
Dude, come on. 1443.
Wow.
What are you doing here?
I don't know.
Aaron Judge, 24 games in the month of May, is slashing 383, 505, 938.
Jesus.
This is borderline greatest month of all time. Like, I'm sure there's been another crazy month, and I'm sure that Sosa's 22 homer June. I can find that right now, actually. Aaron Judge, bookmark it, 1443 OPS. Sammy
But
Sosa, I'm going to go to June of 98.
as you do this, this is what he has done the last 3 years, pretty much now, or 2 years, 2.5 years. If you just remove the stretch of him trying to play through a crushed toe, like, other than that, before he disintegrated his toe in that LA concrete wall thing,
Yeah.
he was on pace to beat what he did the year before with the 62 homers. Like when he's healthy, this is the new reality of Darren Judge. He's the best player in baseball. Like besides Shohei Ohtani, I'm like, remember we were having the Acuna and Judge debate? When Judge's toe is not totally hindering him, it's unparalleled what he does damage wise. But what was the Sosa month?
1173. 20 homer June was an 1173 OPS.
Jeez Louise.
300 points better than Sammy Sosa's 20 homer June.
Different beast.
Different freaking beast. Take us to bed on the PCA story. Give me the rundown from scratch. Go.
You were calling it.
Yeah, but you got to go.
It was the coolest thing I've seen in a while. I when I was watching that clip, I was like running around my kitchen like it was like I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I haven't seen something evoke that much out of me in a long time. So you have Willie Peralta, who pitched in parts of 10 seasons in the big leagues, and you have Pete Crow Armstrong, who is a very energetic, eccentric player that I know rubs some players the wrong way, and maybe that's why this happens. I don't know. But Willie Peralta throws back-to-back pitches. First pitch is behind his legs, and then the next pitch was over his head. And I'm sorry, Willie Peralta, the one thing that guy's had is the ability to throw strikes. A guy like that's not missing that egregiously twice in a row. And after he misses the second time, PCA is like, whoa, like what's going on here? And then his manager comes out, livid, going to bat for his guy, gets tossed. A little bit of a show. Goes back to the dugout and to the clubhouse to the showers. PCA steps back in. The very next pitch is a splitter that stays up, and PCA demolishes it. 110, 400 feet, and finishes his swing and spikes it like a tomahawk. And it was one of the coolest bat flips I've ever seen. And then did his thing around the bases, and it was absolutely incredible. To get thrown at twice like that, have your manager tossed, and the very next pitch go 400 feet, 110, and spike the bat like that, and take your sweet time around the bases. That was one of the coldest things ever. And I think I said in my tweet, I said, this is the coldest home run of the year. Doesn't matter. Nothing will beat it. Unless someone goes game 7, walk off, whatever, no one is beating that home run. That is the coldest home run of the year. It's May 26th. Nothing's going to top that.
It was awesome. And like even calling it remotely for the other team, for Willie Peralta's team, like it was so cold. And that was poetic justice, really. So very, very impressive from Pete Crow Armstrong. That'll do it. We held you about 90 minutes or so, but excited to go in depth with the Corbin Carroll thing and a couple other things on tomorrow's show. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day. Click every link in the episode description, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.